Hi everybody, Bob Olson here with Afterlife TV. Again, you can find us at afterlifetv.com. This is a continuation of an interview that I did with Anita Moorjani. She's the author of an upcoming book called Dying to Be Me. This is sure to be a best-selling book without doubt. Probably a New York Times bestseller for sure. If you don't know her name yet, you're going to know it in the near future. We have been talking about her experience of really having cancer, dying from that cancer, like having, an experience where she was dying, going to the point where she goes into a coma, is brought into the hospital. They tell her family she's got 36 hours at the most to live because her organs are shutting down. She has this coma, near-death experience. She becomes aware of all these things about herself. She recognizes really what caused her cancer. These are all in the part one of this interview. She has a reunion with her father, who gives her a choice whether to live or die. And she recognizes so much about herself and about life in general, and we're going to continue that conversation now so we can learn more about those things from this fascinating experience. So thank you for letting us continue this, Anita. Really appreciate it. There's so much to this story, so we're grateful for you.
It's my pleasure, actually. I love sharing it.
Well, that's great. Why don't we just go back, in the break you and I had talked a little bit about some of the things that we didn't cover that are really significant, I think. And one of them is you recognized when you're in the coma, having this near-death experience, that your lifetime and your husband's lifetime were connected. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I became aware that my husband's life and my life purpose was linked. And I realized that if I chose not to go back into my body, if I chose not to go back to physical life, that he would follow soon after, that he would probably die sometime shortly after I left. And then when I started again, though, I didn't feel sad about it. It still felt that it was perfectly okay, whichever way I chose, whether I chose to come back or whether I chose to stay in the other realm. It was still okay, even if my husband followed me shortly after. I still got the feeling, the sense that everything is still perfect. It's still okay.
Now, this is an interesting perspective that you have, because one of the things that you told us about in part one of this interview was that you often did things for other people. You often put yourself second. Here, you recognize that your husband's life purpose is connected to your being alive, and yet it still doesn't really. It's not the reason that you decide to come back. You recognize that if you choose to die, that everything's going to be okay. He'll be fine.
Yes, because I realized that the connection that we have with each other, like the connection I had with my father and with my brother, is beyond time and space. It's not limited by this physical life. And even if I chose to die, it wouldn't end. My connection with him wouldn't end. So even if he followed me, even though we were meant to be together at this time, it wouldn't, the connection wouldn't end just because my physical body died.
But what about his life purpose now? Does he, do you believe in pre-charting our lives ahead of time? Maybe a couple souls get together over a couple beers and they say, hey, I'll be your husband, you be my wife, let's do this. This is my purpose, this is your purpose, we'll help each other out with that. Do you believe in that sort of thing?
Maybe not to that extent.
No beer? Maybe not the beer.
Well, I think that All right. So what I feel now, even after coming back into life, I've actually had this conversation with my husband, and let me tell you what he said, and maybe that can put it into perspective.
Okay.
When after I healed, after I came back and I healed, my husband he had been so fully engaged or involved in helping me through my illness and helping me through right to the last days, like caring for me. And after I've healed, and I said to him that, do you know that I understood that in the other realm, I understood that our purpose is linked, and that if I died, you would have followed soon after. And he actually said to me that he said, that sounds right. I probably would have, because when I was helping you, I felt that that was my purpose, being there by your side, seeing you through the cancer. If you had died, I would have failed in my purpose, and my purpose would have been over. And those are his words.
Do you think, though, as, I don't know if you call it, I'm just going to use my terminology, as souls, okay? You're back in the spirit world, we're soul to soul. Do you think that there would have been any sense of regret that your husband might have had after he passed and said, I had a lot more things I would have liked to do?
I don't think so, because as souls or as spirits, I think that we are infinite anyway. This slice of time that we're expressing in the physical body is just one slice of time out of millions, infinite numbers of slices of time. So I don't envisage any regret whatsoever. I think that even if I had passed over, even knowing that I would come back and be healed, I wouldn't have expressed any regret, because I don't get the sense that regret is even a feeling or an emotion that exists in that state, in that condition.
I see. Yeah.
That's my sense.
Okay, forgive me for asking this question, but you you have insight that most of us have not had. Certainly I have not had. And so the question comes up when you say that. The question comes up, I think of if someone took their own life. I think about suicide, and people have all sorts of emotions around that for obvious reasons, and certainly we'll say the loved ones of who have survived a suicide, they worry about their loved one in the afterlife because of a deep sense of regret or whatever. Some people believe in punishment. I don't believe in it, but I certainly have always wondered about this deep sense of regret for that. You're sort of saying otherwise. Is even in that case, you believe the same? Yeah.
I don't think the person, the spirit or the essence of the person who committed suicide feels. I think we become removed. It's like when I became involved, when I started to get sucked into the drama, the emotions that was unfolding of my family. Yeah. I was then pulled away simultaneously. So even for somebody who's committed suicide, even in that moment, I would imagine that they would get sucked in to their family, crying, weeping over their body. They would start to get sucked in. But I would assume that the same thing would happen to them as happened to me, where then they then simultaneously feel themselves being pulled away. Their emotions are just being pulled away, and then they just get surrounded by this unconditional love. Yeah. And then there's this feeling that it's okay. It's all still going to work out perfectly in the grand scheme of things.
It's beautiful. Beautifully said, and what a great lesson. I want to talk too about something we talked about on the break. Was you talked about your brother and some things that you recognized about your relationship with your brother. Tell us about those.
My brother is he's older than me, but when he was on the plane coming to see me, and I became aware that he was on the plane coming to see me, I felt very protective of him, and again my emotions started to be drawn into what he was feeling, because he was fully aware that I was dying, and so he was already in grief and emotional on the plane, and I started to get drawn into his emotions, and then I became aware of what could be interpreted as previous lives, but it didn't feel like previous lives because it seemed to be happening simultaneously. So I experienced other lives with my brother where I was protective over him, as though I was older, the older sibling, as though I was caring for him, and he was very young, and it felt as though I was very protective of him, and so that feeling came in where I didn't want to hurt him now. I didn't want to die before he arrived. And as soon as I started to get sucked into that feeling, again I started to get pulled away. But the other lives that I was aware of seemed to be happening then and there. They didn't seem like they were in the past.
So once again, we use the phrase past lives. That's really because we live on the physical plane. We see everything in linear time. In the other realm, as you say, the word past doesn't really exist. It was other lives. You were aware of these other lives and how they affected you, even at that very moment, about wanting to protect your brother. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's very cool. It's very cool because I would assume, and you believe too, from having this experience, that these other lives affect us here on Earth, on the physical plane. So even the protectiveness that you might feel about your older brother at times would be related to this other lifetime that you had as his older sister?
Yes, it would. And also I feel that sometimes these feelings, as you say, they come through, and I think sometimes we feel like, when we kind of feel that, oh, in a past life I must have been so and so, or I must have been like this. I actually no longer think of those as past lives. I'm now thinking that, okay, beyond this physical body, time is not linear. So I am those things that I'm feeling, but probably in a life that's running simultaneously right now, in another realm, in another plane.
That's very cool. And so, not trying to stump you here, but how would maybe deja vu fit into this?
I think because time is very, very different. So deja vu is almost like us getting a glimpse. So it's almost like a glimpse outside of our body of something that hasn't happened. So it's like almost like a fold in time. So getting a glimpse of something ahead of time, sort of like what happened to me with the test results. I already knew what the results were going to be if I chose to come back. Well,
yeah, and that's a little bit different, but did that feel like a deja vu experience when the test results came back?
Absolutely, because when the doctor came in and said, "We have great news, her organs are functioning, we've just got the results in," my husband and my brother, my mom, they were all really happy. They were like, "Oh, that's great news," and I actually said, but didn't we already know that? Because again, I was still very, very confused, and everything was blurry. It was still like within the same day that I'd come out of the coma, and I said, "But we already knew that." And then they looked at me and they said, "No, you couldn't have known that." And I said, "No, but I did. I knew that."
How long did it take you before you kind of put it all together and figured out what really happened?
It took a number of days of just a little bit each day, and then I think by the fourth or fifth day, the first few days I was euphoric, and I didn't understand why I was euphoric. I was just really, really happy, and I kept telling everybody, I'm going to be fine. I know I'm going to heal. I just know I'm going to heal. And nobody could understand why I knew this. I mean, least of all the doctors. They were really skeptical, and they were, because I had all these tubes in me, the oxygen tube, a food tube, and they were really uncomfortable. So I wanted them to start taking the tubes out, and they were refusing to take the tubes out. And I said, my appetite's come back. I'll eat. Don't worry. I can breathe now. And I was pulling them off, and so they were like really monitoring me, and I had all these things connected to my heart and everything, and so they were monitoring me really closely. But I was really euphoric and happy, and I kept saying, something's happened. I can't explain it, but something's happened, and I know I'm going to be fine. And then I started I asked my husband to bring my iPod, because I wanted to listen to music, and I wanted to eat different foods, like not hospital food.
Yeah.
And so when the doctor took out the food tube, which I hated, it was the worst thing of all because it really itches the throat. They took that out. They actually said the best thing for me to eat would be ice cream because it would soothe the throat. And I was really thrilled. I said, yes, ice cream.
I can do that. Yeah.
So, yeah, I can do that. So I was eating ice cream and I was listening to my music on my iPod, and the interesting thing, I couldn't wear the earphones of my iPod, partly because of the wires and partly because I still had bandages around my neck because of the skin lesions. So my husband put them on little speakers on my bedside table. Now I was in the ICU and separated from the other rooms by a curtain. And so I was, I was talking and eating ice cream and playing my music, and I wanted to play upbeat dance music. And all the relatives of all the other patients who were really sick all complained to the nurses that, this person's making too much noise, and so then they came and they told me that they'd have to move me because the ICU was for people who were dying.
Well, that's one way for them to get the message, isn't it? So they kicked you out of there. They give you your own room after that?
Yeah, they gave me my own room, and this is like 4 days in ICU, and the doctor actually, when he came in to tell me the other patients were complaining and the tubes were out by then, and he had my file, and he actually said, I don't know what to make of you. I don't even know what to write in your file anymore. And he sort of turned his head.
I'm sure the doctors are flabbergasted by this whole thing. I know that against your wishes, sort of as a last resort while you were in the coma, they actually started the chemotherapy, which you were afraid of before and you didn't want. While you're in the coma, they give it to you like last resort. Did the doctor or any doctors want to take credit or give the chemo credit for your healing afterwards?
Yes, there was a bit of controversy over that because my own doctor prior to that had actually said by this point it's too late for chemo because the organs are starting to shut down and chemo is not the right thing. So the doctor that decided to administer the chemo put it down to the chemo actually working. But yet a third doctor, an oncologist who later studied my reports, said that it's impossible that it's the chemo. He said, I've gone through everything and chemo does not react this way. And my cycle was far shorter than what would have been called for had I actually taken chemo when I was able to. Yeah. So for one thing, it literally, the test results started showing within days. So he said there's no way that it was the chemo. So
they put you through a lot of excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know they put you through a lot of tests that you thought, well, you knew were unnecessary, correct?
Correct.
But the nice thing about it is that now you have all these test results to sort of as evidence of really what happened or what didn't happen. as far as what the doctors expected. So you have all these test results. So there's no question about the fact that this was what some might call a miraculous healing. Is this correct?
Yes, and I'm actually relieved that I do have all the tests, and I really didn't want. I was really against having all the tests, especially the lymph node biopsy, and there was where they take fluid out of the spine to test the spinal fluid, because it was supposed to have spread in there as well, but they could find no trace of cancer there. And it was all really painful, and so I was protesting against it. But today, yeah, I'm really glad they did it all, because I've got that as a testimony now.
That's right, exactly. I imagine the spinal test was painful.
Yeah. Very. And the lymph node biopsy.
Oh, I'm sure, and I'm sure you still have scars as a result.
Yes. Oh, I forgot to mention one other thing. The skin lesions. They said that I would need reconstructive surgery because my body didn't have the nutrients to heal. It was far too weak, and the lesions were huge, gaping wounds, and so they had scheduled reconstructive surgery for like 3 weeks later.
Oh.
But when the reconstructive surgeon even came in and looked at it and even said that, okay, you're too weak now and these are not going to heal on their own, so he scheduled it for 3 weeks after he looked at it. But when he came back to see me, he said, they're healing. I don't need to do anything. So even though I've got scars, they completely healed on their own.
I love this. What a great story. Fascinating, insightful, miraculous. I want to talk a little bit about the healing. We'll call this part 2 here, the random questions to Anita. Let's talk a little bit about healing, because we talked in part 1 about, in your case, it was really the energy of the fears and the way, a lot of the beliefs that you had and the way that you thought over the years, it created the energy that led to the physical cancer, in this case, the physical illness. What can people do from what you've learned in this experience? What can any one of us do, either one, to sort of clear that energy and stay healthy, or if we are suffering with something, some kind of illness, what can we do to try to heal ourselves in this way?
The best thing that anybody can do for themselves, no matter what, I feel, is to really get in touch with who they really are. And when I say that, I mean, it's really to get a sense of your own emotions. Like, ask yourself, what do I like? What do I like doing? What makes me happy? What makes me tick? What brings me joy? What makes me feel alive? And I think it's that we forget. We forget to get in touch with ourselves. And I think when we feel this joy, this passion, then we get into this, that's when we're at our healthiest and our happy. That's where, when we do things, we're coming from a state of being rather than a state of doing. When we're always doing things, but are we doing it out of being, or are we doing it out of just doing? When we live in fear, that's when we are in a state of doing. Mm-hmm. So when all our emotions, if the reason why we do everything is because I'm scared to be left behind, I'm scared I won't have enough money, that's why I've taken this job, I'm scared I won't be liked, and that's why I'm doing this, I'm scared. And so if every decision we make is based on fear, then we're constantly doing things and we lose touch with who we really are. We lose. Basically, that's what happened with me, and my soul or spirit or whatever went through a real identity crisis, and to me, that's what caused the cancer. I feel that cancer is not an illness of the body. That's why the body just reflected what I was inside. The cancer, to me, was more, I could say, an illness of the emotions or an illness of the identity, but it's not an illness of the body.
So what could we ask ourselves if we were trying to make a choice about something, maybe a new job or what we wanted to do one day. It's not something as simple as that. That we would need to ask ourselves some kind of a question. Am I doing this out of fear or a sense of obligation or responsibility, or am I doing this because it's something that I want to do, something that feels loving to me? Is that sort of the kind of question we would ask?
Yes, and also if we're planning to do something, is to ask ourselves, how does it make me feel to do this? Is it a kind of a heavy, draining feeling, or do I feel uplifted and light and passionate about doing it, whatever it is? And those are the kinds of questions I would ask. Mm.
Because it's the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year, the more we continue to do things that are based out of fear instead of love, this builds up in our energy body. What would you call that?
Yes, it really builds up in our energy. It drains us. And it includes even when we choose foods that we're going to eat. It's great to eat healthy food, and I advocate eating healthy, but why are we eating healthy? Is it because we're scared that we're going to be sick, or is it because we love our bodies and we love the way the healthy food is going to make us feel?
Yeah.
I used to eat healthy food before I had cancer, and so many people said, oh, but you used to eat so healthy and you watched everything. Yeah, but that's because I was scared. I was so scared of cancer that I wouldn't eat anything that was said to have caused cancer. But today, I mean, even if I eat a piece of chocolate, I make sure I enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And you're not telling yourself, chocolate causes cancer as you're putting it into your mouth. Like, I feel so guilty because this is unhealthy for me, right? You're thinking, yes. I love chocolate. Chocolate tastes good. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and it's like, how does it make me feel? Oh, it makes me feel amazing. But at the same time, if I feel that I want to lose some weight and so I've got to cut out the chocolate and all, that's fine too. I'm doing it because it's something I want to do. It's not like, oh man, I've got to. So it's really about checking in with how you feel, and so if you want to eat healthy foods, what I would do now is when they say I want to eat more healthier options, it's getting in touch with the feeling of how it would make me feel to be fit and healthy, and get in touch with that feeling. And that's why I'm eating it, not because I'm scared of getting sick or scared of cancer.
Yeah, yeah. Along the same lines, how do we get in touch with this our core essence of love? We go through our day-to-day lives and, there's a lot of chaos and drama out there. How do we tap into this core essence that we are love? Sometimes, if I'm driving through Boston traffic, I'm not feeling love. Just my core essence doesn't feel love. But, when I drive up, into the countryside and, now I can feel love. How do we get in touch with that love when we're maybe not really feeling it sometimes?
Well, the thing is to, first of all, stop everything we're doing. And to me, the gateway to that place is my emotions. I think emotions are underrated. They're not talked about enough. They're not. And nobody's ever taught me that the most important thing is how you feel about yourself. Nobody ever told me that when I was growing up. It was all about what you do and how you present yourself. It's never about how you feel. What I've learned from my near-death experience is that the most important thing is how I feel. So when you're feeling frustrated and you're caught up in Boston traffic, okay, you've got to keep going, but make sure that there's a point in your day where you can actually stop. And that's what I would do now, is to really just stop and relax, and I just start to vision everything lifting off and all my muscles relaxing. I try to recreate that. For me, I try to recreate that NDE space. I call it that. But the gateway is my emotions. It's really checking in. How am I feeling? How am I feeling about what I'm doing right now? How do I feel about everything that's happening in my life? What can I tweak to make me feel better right now? So that's feelings.
Great advice. And let's take it a step further, because there's a lot of people who don't feel that great about themselves, and you recognize that from the past. How can people find that love for themselves if they're not feeling it? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, well, I guess the feeling doesn't come instantly. So what I think the best thing that I can think of to suggest is to start by doing little things for yourself. Start by doing things for yourself that you've always wanted to do but never done before for whatever reason, because you didn't think you were worthy, or you didn't think you deserved it, or other things seemed more like a priority. So then the first thing I would do is to start becoming aware of where I've stopped putting any priority on myself. And so when I'm thinking that, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm not gonna do this for myself because so and so needs a new pair of shoes or whatever, stop and think, okay, maybe I do need to do this for myself. Maybe it is more important because so and so, whoever it is, whether it's the family, the kids, the father, the husband, all these people around you who depend on you, they need you to be 100% healthy and happy.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's a trickle-down effect. You know, if you feel better about yourselves, like for instance, if you go out and you get yourself a massage, or you know, if maybe you hire someone to clean the house for you twice a week, you know, whatever it may be, when you start doing these little things that some people feel as though they just don't deserve, if you get over that and recognize that by doing it for yourself, as you said, it's difficult we can't give love to other people if we don't feel the love within us. If we don't have love for ourselves. This is a way of being loving to yourself so that it affects all the other people that are around you. Is that also what you're saying?
That's correct, yes. So it means stop seeing it as selfish, because when we stop, we need to stop seeing doing things for ourselves as being selfish. Yeah. Because when we don't do things for ourselves, we become needy, and that's even worse.
What you're saying there reminds me, we both have a friend, Cheryl Richardson. She's written a great book called The Art of Extreme Self-Care, all about this subject, you know, trying to teach people. And it's interesting because I know some people actually, you know, criticized some of the things that she wrote in that book because it made them, it was their interpretation, you know, projecting that, you know, that she was suggesting that people be more selfish. And, you know, really, yes, be more selfish if it's going to make you feel better about yourself, right? As long as it's not at the expense of others.
Exactly. And I think that when somebody is actually really, is actually happy, fulfilled, self-fulfilled, and they have everything, and all their needs are met, they are actually the most generous people, generous and selfless people you can have. Whereas when somebody is putting themselves last, not because they want to, but because they feel they should, and because they feel it's a selfless thing to do, and they never ever fulfill their own needs, they actually become needier on other people. Yeah.
Do you believe that that you had this experience? And where you were able to make that choice and come back, and your energy was clear, basically. Do you believe that any one of us can heal our illnesses by doing some of these things we've talked about?
I think it would help. I think that generally, if our values were different, if everybody's values were different, and the way we look at illnesses, because this is the other thing that really disturbs me, is how much awareness there is about cancer, and I don't agree with it. Yes. I know many people will not agree with me saying this. I know many people will disagree with this, but I think that the more aware we become about cancer, the more we are actually causing more cancer, because I feel that even the way our medical system works is, instead of looking at wellness, people are looking for illness, and our diagnostic tools are all designed to look for cancer, And that's the first thing everybody looks for.
Yeah.
And even TV ads, and everybody is just telling you to go get checked out for cancer, and that's all we've all got. It's like we're being programmed to look for cancer.
Yeah.
That bothers me. I find that very disturbing.
I recognize that. My wife and I have had a conversation about this same thing, so I'm excited about it. I didn't mean to interrupt again.
No,
you get me excited because everywhere you go, especially, there's all this breast cancer awareness stuff going on. And so everywhere you go, you see a pink ribbon, you can have a box of cereal and there's something about breast cancer awareness on there. But it's true. We have license plates up here in Maine where, you're driving down the road and there's that pink ribbon on the license plate. The whole license plate is covered in pink. And so you really can't go through your day without being reminded about breast cancer. Now, I get that there's a positive side to it. They're trying to raise money for research, but at the same time, there's a negative aspect to it, which is what you're talking about. It just keeps reminding us about it, and we have fear. Women have fear about it, unbelievably, and that just keeps it in your mind every single day. Is it correct?
That's correct, because I had huge fear about cancer as well. Huge fear, because I was surrounded by it. I had people very close to me that had cancer, and it was quite a shock to the people around me when I got cancer, because it was like it was happening to one person and the next and the next, and because I was reading up a lot about cancer because I wanted to help the people I knew who had cancer. The more I would read on it, the more afraid I became of cancer. Yeah. And now, even though I've written a book and all, but apart from writing and talking, I tend to talk very little about cancer itself. I tend to focus a lot more on the healing and the lessons and the inspiration. But I rarely ever focus on actually cancer and cancer symptoms, or and I don't actually advocate that people have to go for early screenings and things like that. I don't really advocate that. And I know I'm saying this and people will probably disagree with me.
What?
But,
yeah, it's okay because, well, first of all, I agree with you. My wife, Melissa, was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2008. And interestingly, she felt the same way that you felt about chemotherapy and a lot of the traditional ways of healing cancer. She decided to do it alternatively, and what she chose to do was she decided to treat herself according to what felt most loving to her body.
That's
and she
great.
felt the other alternatives, surgery and chemotherapy, did not feel loving to her.
Exactly.
And actually created more fear. And and I think a lot of people can relate. I don't think there's any argument. You can go into the hospital, and that can be a very negative experience. Sometimes there's people, nurses and doctors can be very detached, and there's pain involved, and that's what she saw. She said, "I don't feel like that's loving to me. I'm going to treat myself more lovingly," and she did it in other ways. So, my wife and I agree with everything that you're saying here, and there's a lot of people out there who do, and yet we recognize that a lot of people don't believe in these things, and that's okay too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, your book "Dying to Be Me" is coming out March 2012. It's interesting. At what point did you write this book?
Actually, very shortly after my near-death experience, I started writing more for cathartic reasons. It's more because I felt that it was very hard for anybody to understand what had happened to me, or I was finding it hard to express it, so I just started writing as a release.
Yeah.
And then my brother found this website called Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, and he showed me the link, and then when I looked at the website, I thought, that's interesting. There are people that have had something similar, like crossed over and all. So there was a button which you click on. It said, if you've had an experience yourself and you'd like to tell us about it, please click here. So I clicked, and then I had to fill in this really long form. So I filled it in, and then I wrote my experience and I submitted it. And it said, after I clicked submit on the screen, it said, we will get back to you within about 3 weeks. But I got a response within hours from the person who ran the site, who said, I'm really excited to read your story. So what happened from there, to cut a long story short, is that I started writing on their forum. And so I started, that's when I first started to realize how cathartic it was for me to write and to answer people's questions.
Yeah.
And I kept a collection of everything, and then I created the website. And the book itself, though, only came about in 6 months. But I had been writing, and a lot of the things that I wrote previously, I sort of wove it into the book.
Oh, right, right.
But the book project only started in March of this year, when...
Oh, okay. So tell us about that. How did that happen? I understand you met someone rather famous in this field, Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yes, that's right. Oh, that was really amazing. On my birthday, March 16th of this year, I got an email from Hay House that said, Dr. Wayne Dyer has become a fan of yours. And that blew me away. I thought, fan of mine? Because at that point, I mean, not a lot of people knew me except people who read that forum and stuff like that. So I was really surprised. I thought, Wayne Dyer has become a fan of mine. And Hay House said that if you're planning to write a book, we would like to help you and publish it. Oh. So I was blown away because that was on my birthday. I thought, what an incredible birthday present.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so, of course, I responded and said, yes, I would love to. And then and then what happened is that they then wrote back and said Wayne Dyer would like to write, would love to write the foreword for your book. So I was really thrilled.
Yeah.
And then another friend of mine told me she'd been listening to Hay House Radio, Dr. Wayne Dyer's show, every week, and she said, he talks about you. He talks about your NDE. I said, really? So I started tuning in. I went into the archives and I listened to it. And there he was talking about my NDE week after week after week. I thought, this is incredible. And so then one night I thought I'll call in on his show because he takes callers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I called in. It was, because of the time difference, it was 4 a.m. Hong Kong time. And it's 1 p.m. on your side of the world. And so I set the alarm clock and I woke up, and then I dialed and dialed. I woke up half an hour earlier because I thought I'll start calling early just to be able to get through.
Yeah.
So I got through and the phone was ringing, and somebody actually picked up and told me to hold, and I was really thrilled. And so I was. So then Wayne, his show started and he's talking, and then he says, "Okay, so we got some callers." And then Diane Ray, the producer, she goes, there's a caller all the way from Hong Kong, so let's take that one. So there were like maybe 8 or 10 callers they put on hold, but she just thought she'd take Hong Kong because it was the furthest one away.
Yes, yeah.
So when she said there's a caller by the name of Anita from Hong Kong, and the moment she said Anita from Hong Kong, Wayne goes, "Oh my God, I know who that is!" And
that's great. And you got so that was the first time you got to talk to him?
That was the first time I got to talk to him, and then he told Diane, hold all the other calls, and then he made me share my story on air. Then after the show finished, and then he chatted with me off air, and he started telling me that he really wanted me to become part of the Hay House family and to write my book, and he would help me promote it, and we had this wonderful conversation, and he was just really incredible. And then after that, so then I signed the contract, I started writing the book, and I was assigned an editor. And then Wayne Dyer contacted me and said, I would like to fly you over to the US in October, which was last month, to appear on my PBS special, which we are taping, and also to appear on stage with me in Pasadena. So yeah, it's been an incredible ride.
Exciting.
Yeah,
oh
really.
Goodness. Yeah, I mean, that's a big show. So many people, well, let me give you he did that show. He does it every year or every 2 years. I don't even know. It seems like it's every year. Does one every year. I went to the taping of the show. I was just in the audience in Boston a few years back. And I can't tell you how many people emailed or called me up and said, I saw you on Wayne Dyer. So, and I was in the audience. I think they showed me for 2 seconds. So this is going to be a lot of great exposure for you, your story, your message, and your book. That's so exciting. Talk about being in the flow. This is like in the flow for sure.
Oh, it's been amazing. And Wayne Dyer, he's really a fantastic mentor. You know, he's an incredible person.
Yes.
Very generous.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy for you. You really deserve it. I think more and more people are going to change their lives because of some of the wisdom that you even have shared with us today. I really hope people will integrate these ideas into their life. I'm going to do it. I know my wife's going to do it. And it really start to be more loving, get a bit more in touch with that core essence of ourselves, which, as you say, is just pure love.
It is
And even to start doing more things that I want to do out of love, rather than, you know, if doing things out of a sense of fear or obligation or even responsibility. So thank you for all that you have shared with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Really, it is.
It is ours too. And people can visit your website, AnitaMoorjani.com. There's a link to it underneath the video. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future. We'll watch the PBS special with Wayne Dyer in the coming months. When does that start? In January, or is it already out there?
No, it's. I think it's going to be aired in San Diego in January, and then from March it's going to be everywhere else.
Okay. All right. Well, your world is going to just take over. Nobody's going to be able to get in touch with you after March, I'm sure. Have fun with the journey.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Anita.
Bye. Bye. Bye.